Hello, I'm Blackbright and I'm broadcasting out of the UK. And for those of you who know me, welcome back. You're welcome. If you're new, you're welcome to hit the subscribe button, like or share. I do a variety of stuff. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get with me. All you do know, the one consistent thing is that you're going to be informed about something. Now, I wanted to do a quick roundup of the week's event this week. I was thinking more or less about an amalgamation of a cross section of things. So I'm not quite sure how my audience will feel about that or my subscribers, but I'm going to start off with the immigration. The immigration now has hit the headlines again. They've come out with some figures, and it's very interesting that it's so well timed with the protests, with the riots in Brixton, with people not having jobs, with the fact that people who are on furlough may not be re-employed. And it's almost like they love to pile stuff on top of the other. So it does create a problem. Now, they're magicking numbers out of the hat from what I can see with regard to immigration. Nobody knows how many illegal migrants are in the country. No one knows. And even though we've got these figures, the Migration Observatory organization, they haven't got a clue. They cannot endorse these numbers. So somebody has somehow magicked them out of the hat to make it look as though there's more illegal immigrants than there are. And as usual, it creates a problem. Because what it does, it makes people see what there is not. So we've got a news agency cited the report last Wednesday, and there's no mention of the news agency or the name of the report. And that is when you know that something is just not right. Now, I got this information from the Immigration and Visa website. Came up 860,000 illegal immigrants in the UK. That is the headline. And yet there is nothing to substantiate it, nothing at all. And I think it's really quite disturbing that people would do that. But it's intentional. It's intentional to create fear. It's intentional to think, oh my God, all these people are taking our houses, they're taking our jobs, we ain't got a job. And especially when people are feeling vulnerable, as they are at this time. So, a news agency cited a report last Wednesday. The Home Office's previous assessment was around 430,000 illegal migrants in 2005. And that is an assessment because they do not know. How is this? I said, how is this number assessed? Anyway, and then it is followed up by latest estimates from other organisations. Doesn't state the organisations. Now, if this is credible information, they should be citing the source of this information, which they're not. Advise the population of illegal migrants may have doubled, even though the National Audit Office has not authenticated these estimates. I mean, if you haven't got any facts, why put it out there? May, might, estimate, assessed. What does that mean? It just means it's a lot of hype designed to cause unrest. So, the independent public spending watchdog said the United Kingdom Home Office urges illegal migrants to return voluntarily. The numbers of voluntary returns from 1,200 in 2015 to 460 in 2019. So in 2015, there was 1,200 voluntary returns to wherever they came from. And in 2019, there was only 460. How do we know that that's not all there are? I mean, I know there might be a few, I would maybe a couple of thousand. Maybe there's a couple of thousand out there. But all of this 860,000, 460,000, it is just absolutely ridiculous. And I don't believe it. And then do you notice they make sure they tail it on these illegal migrants who are crossing the channel. I don't know why people would attempt to cross the channel to come to the UK when they know, number one, that they're going to be sent back, or they're going to be left to drown, or they're going to be put in a detention centre, or they're going to be cruelly treated. I mean, why do these people, I just can't get it. I mean, they must see in the news what happens to people who come over and cross the channel to get to the UK. I don't get it. Why? I mean, yes, you're going to say, oh, it's better here than it is in my country. How the bloody hell do you know? You don't know what it's like here. And it's not better than your country. Even if you're being persecuted in your country, you're going to be persecuted here. So what's the difference? But oh no, they still decide to come on these little bloody boats, going through the channel, tired, hungry, weak, and they end up on the borders to be abused and sent back. What is the point? Stay where you are, please. There is no home here in the UK. And if by chance you happen to reach the soil so that the UK has to record your entry onto the soil because they haven't been able to prevent you, you're going to have a life of hell. Anyway, how do those... Yeah, and I was wondering, how do those who cross the channel get back? I mean, are they saying that once they reach here, the UK has to pay for their deportation back to the UK? Or do they send them back on their boat, or how does that work? Anyway, the Home Office has imposed just under 7,500 deportations between 2018 to the end of November 2019. And the Home Office will stop illegal immigration through superior observance with laws, confronting risks connected with immigration offending, increasing the return of illegal migrants, and returning foreign national criminals to their country of origin. And that could be, I mean, regardless of what you've done, if you're not born in the country and you've committed an offence, you can be deported. So they're going to ramp that up. Okay, so then another subject. We're talking about the COVID-19 lockdown now that it's been partially lifted. So we're still neither here nor there. I can understand why some businesses are concerned that they're not allowed to open while others are, and it's hard to make sense of why you would open a pub when, you know, there's such a lot of people in it, and then a gym, they're saying you can't. On the one hand, I'm thinking, well, in a gym, even though you're quite a bit apart, there is a lot of sweat going on. There is a lot of touching the bars with sweaty hands. And even though you have a towel and you can wipe it off after, can you really monitor everyone? So I can kind of understand the gyms, even though the gym owners can't understand it, because what they're saying is you're going to go to a pub. I guess in a pub, you're probably going to go and buy your drink. You're going to go and sit down. And yes, you do have rowdy people and you do have loud people. But I would imagine if that was to happen, they'd have security guards who have PPE equipment on and gloves who would actually put that apart. But from what I understand is that pubs are still going to be kind of regularised. There's no standing up at the bar. They have to be seated and all that kind of stuff. But I can understand from business owners how difficult it must be to see so many businesses open and yet they are still not allowed to, especially those nail salons. They must be bricking it because you know how much money they make in a day. I mean, and they take cash, the majority of them, especially the little Asian shops or the Oriental shops. I mean, I've sat there, and when you think the turnaround, they have they have 5 nail technicians, and then they probably have 2 pedicure seats, and they're kind of going in between both at £30 a time. And then not only £30, they might have something else. They might decide to do their eyebrows. I worked it out on average. It's about 40 per client. And when I was sitting in there, I mean, there must have been maybe about more than 15. So you're looking like about 600 in less than an hour. And the way they turn you around, I mean, you're in and out of there. If you're having a pedicure, you're out of there by 40 minutes. If you're having your nails done, you're out there. Make sure you're out there between 30 to 35 minutes. And there's always people waiting. So those nail salons, they're bricking it right now. And they cannot open. They reckon a lot of detention centres have been evacuated. I don't know if that's health reasons or whether they weren't meant to be there in the first place. Those people who are meant to sign in or check in with the Home Office, they need to start doing that now. Boris reckoned he was going to give amnesty to illegal immigrants. The problem with the term illegal immigrants is that it conjures up images of blacks and Asians and anyone with an accent. So when racists decide to have their day, they will hit out at anyone of colour, whether or not they're legal or illegal. And that is the problem when they're trying to conjure up. I mean, I was watching this video that openly spoke about these 3 police officers in Wilmington. So they can't wait to start a race war so they can massacre all the blacks and other immigrants. And it was caught on tape. And yes, those 3 officers have been sacked. They've been sacked because they've been caught. What about all of those officers who are saying that and who have not been caught and they're still roaming the streets? They are trying to incite a race war, and that's why it pees me off no end when people like those in Brixton who have a street party, knowing it's not permitted under the guise of this protest. It's just not right. Why can't you do things in the correct way? If you're up there and you're talking about rights and you're talking about legislation and you're informing people, and maybe you have some appropriate or relevant music in the background that talks about injustice, so it's a kind of an organized, collaborated event that is relevant. But when you're just out there having some big street party under the guise that you're doing it under some kind of Black Lives Matter, it's making a mockery of the whole thing. We don't want a bloody race war. That's not what this is about. This is about curbing racism and making lives better for everyone. It's not about for a few renegades to go out there and try and create a problem that impacts everybody of colour. And that is what happens. And then you have that. I'm not quite sure why it's not headline news, why they're not making it bigger than what it is, because if this was another space and time, that would have been making mega news. But it's been kind of downplayed, and I'm not quite sure. And 14 police officers were injured. This is not what this is meant to be about. This is about, we're looking for solutions. And when you are being rebellious in that way, that is not a solution. You need to be working in a way that you're providing answers and doing something constructive. Not because you're being deprived of going out, you use this as an excuse to have a party. So, I don't know, maybe I don't consider myself as a conformist. I'm not saying, you should toe the line in every shape and form. But what I do believe, I would like to know that if you are black, you are representing blacks well and you're doing the right thing. That is what I want to see. I don't care how, I want to see you do something positive and constructive. Something that, we look at you and you say, like the Marcus Garveys and the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luther Kings and you look at them and you have a sense of pride. That's what I want to feel for my black people. I want to feel a sense of pride. I don't want to hear when I'm on the news, I'm like, oh my God, why have they gone and done that? That's not what I want to hear, and that's not what I want to see. And yet I know black people have the potential to do so much good. They've got untapped talent, and they're intelligent, and they can do the right thing. And that's all I'm saying. Getting back to this, I went a bit off track there, didn't I? So, what else have I got here? Yeah, I've said I'm disappointed about the Brixton violence. Acknowledgement of racism should not be an excuse to breach the law and become a nuisance. Even though the police are meant to exercise professional conduct, these kind of situations inflame an already fragile environment which could be avoided, where people get hurt who do not need to. Under the guise of Black Lives Music protest, it seems just like a selfish excuse to exploit the protest marchers. Unless there are talks of speeches on injustice and the music is directly relevant to injustice, I cannot see how the event that clearly violates recent legislation can be received positively. And then we have America First. They've put a stop on immigration completely. Trump is saying that the indigenous Americans don't have jobs, so they're not letting anyone in now. But they've got enough robots in there to take people's jobs, haven't they? Opening up and keeping lockdown. So I've already done that. Nightclubs, well, I can understand that. So what's open? Open, you get the pubs, restaurants, hairdressers, leisure facilities, outdoor gyms, playgrounds, cinemas, museums, galleries, theme parks, arcades, libraries, social clubs, places of worship, and community centres, and wedding with 30 guests can take place. Which you could argue that in places of worship where they go into their big, and especially in Caribbeans, and they go into the spirit and they do all kind of stuff. You could say that, you can't have spittle, they're not, and they all singing, because with my mother's funeral, we're not allowed to have any choir, we're not allowed to have any singing, because they say when people sing, there's spittle. Okay, and it could spread the coronavirus. So I don't understand that in places of, they're now opening up places of worship, doing just that, singing all over the place, they're spittle flying all over the place, they're falling on each other. So, I can understand why people, this is a bit of a mishmash roundup, I'm sorry about that, but I can understand why people in the gyms don't understand why certain places can open up and other places can't. Because I was talking about sweat mingling, but the same could happen in places of worship and social clubs. I'm glad libraries are open. I'm glad museums and galleries are open. Theme parks, that's great. And cinemas. Well, and the lockdown is nightclubs. I can understand that, all that closed rubber-dub business. Soft play areas, well, yes, of course, you're going to be touching the same thing over and over again. Indoor gyms, what else? Swimming pools and water parks, bowling alleys. I can understand that because you're touching the same walls. And I think this is more about saving work for the employers more than anyone else, or the business owners, because in a bowling alley, you're going to have to keep cleaning those balls, and you're going to have to keep cleaning all the areas. It's going to be a bloody nightmare. It's a nightmare anyway for those people who want to keep their business open. Every minute wiping down and doing this and doing that, it would drive me bloody nuts. That is taking you away from customer time. And have somebody behind you every 5 minutes, but that's the way it's got to be. And so, like I said before, 3 Wilmington, that's in North Carolina, veteran police officers in America caught on tape. We're going to start slaughtering those effing niggers. I can't wait for a race war. A civil war is needed to wipe them off the effing map. That will put them back 4 or 5 generations. And that was caught on tape. And like I said, just like George Floyd was caught on tape, and all of those people where it hasn't been caught on tape, where that has happened. And so, you know, it's unsettling that unless it's caught on tape, it doesn't happen. That's the world we live in, folks. I'm sorry I couldn't be more positive. I've got to, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock. I'm supposed to be in London. So that's all for now. Bye-bye.